The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, its screen glowing like a beacon in the dim morning light. And I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips. A single notification stared back at me. Flight confirmation for Sarah, Miami, 3 days. My heart stuttered. Sarah had told me her girls' trip was to Asheville. A cozy weekend of wine tastings and hiking with her college friends. Miami? The word felt like a splinter under my skin, sharp and impossible to ignore. I set the mug down, the ceramic clinking too loudly against the granite. My fingers hovered over the phone. Her phone, left carelessly by the sink as she showered upstairs. The hum of the water through the pipes was a distant drone. But it couldn't drown out the sudden roar of doubt in my chest. Why would she lie? My wife, Sarah, with her quick laugh and hazel eyes that crinkled when she smiled, had never given me a reason to question her. 12 years of marriage, a mortgage, 2 kids, and a life stitched together with quiet routines and shared dreams. None of it screamed deception. Yet here I was, staring at a lie. I tapped the notification. The email loaded. A round-trip ticket to Miami, leaving tomorrow. No mention of Asheville, no trace of her friends. Just her name, a solo itinerary, and a hotel booking at some sleek resort on South Beach. My stomach churned, a mix of nausea and something darker, heavier, betrayal's first whisper. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a surprise she hadn't told me about, but the splinter dug deeper. I needed answers. And I needed them before she stepped out of that shower. The house was too quiet that evening, the kids at my parents' for the weekend. Sarah moved through the kitchen with her usual grace, chopping vegetables for dinner, humming softly. Her auburn hair was tucked into a messy bun, and she wore the faded t-shirt I'd bought her on our honeymoon in Maine. She looked like my Sarah, the woman who'd cried during our vows and laughed until she snorted at my terrible dad jokes. But the email burned in my mind. A secret I wasn't supposed to know. So Asheville tomorrow, huh? I said, leaning against the counter, forcing my voice to stay light. You excited? She didn't pause, her knife slicing through a carrot with precision. Yeah, it'll be nice. Just me, Jen, and Lisa. We're hitting some wineries, maybe a spa day. Her tone was casual, rehearsed. Too perfect. I nodded, my throat tight. Sounds fun. You've got everything packed. Pretty much. She glanced at me, her smile quick but not reaching her eyes. You okay watching the kids? I know it's short notice. They're at Mom's, I said, watching her closely. Thought it'd give us a quiet night before you go. Her hands stilled for a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. That's sweet, she said, turning to rinse the knife. You're the best, Matt. The best. The word stung. I wanted to confront her right then, to lay the email on the table like a winning hand, but something held me back. Fear, maybe, of breaking something we couldn't fix. Or worse, of hearing a truth I wasn't ready for. Instead, I said, hope you have a blast. Text me when you land, okay? She nodded, drying her hands. Of course. That night, as she slept beside me, her breathing soft and even, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The splinter had become a blade, carving into every memory of us. I thought of her laugh, her touch, the way she'd curl into me during thunderstorms. Was it all a lie? Or was I building a mountain out of nothing? I needed proof, something more than an email. So I did something I'd never done before. I slipped out of bed, grabbed her phone, and cracked it open with the passcode I'd seen her use 1,000 times. Her messages were a maze of mundane, group chats with friends, work emails, reminders about soccer practice. But buried in a thread with an unsaved number, I found it. Can't wait to see you in Miami. Rooms booked. Just us. No name, no context, just a dagger to my chest. My hands shook as I scrolled. More messages, vague but damning. Miss you already. Call when you're free. And her replies short but warm. Soon. Promise. I sat there in the dark, the phone's glow burning my eyes, and felt my world tilt. Sarah, my Sarah, was slipping away, and I hadn't even noticed. The next morning, I drove her to the airport, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. She chatted about the weather, about how she'd miss the kids, about how we should plan a family trip soon. I nodded, smiled, played the part of the supportive husband while my mind screamed. Who are you meeting in Miami? I wanted to shake her, to demand the truth, but I didn't. Not yet. I had a plan. After dropping her off, I went home, packed a bag and booked a flight to Miami. It was reckless, maybe even unhinged, but I couldn't sit at home wondering. I needed to see it, whatever it was, with my own eyes. The flight was a blur, my thoughts a tangle of anger and dread. By the time I landed in Miami, the humid air clung to me like guilt. I rented a car and drove to the hotel from the email. A sleek high-rise with palm trees and glass that screamed money and secrets. I didn't have a room, didn't have a plan beyond finding her. The lobby was all marble and mirrors, reflecting my disheveled reflection back at me. I sat in a corner, sipping overpriced coffee, scanning every face that passed. Hours ticked by, each one heavier than the last. Then I saw her. Sarah stepped out of the elevator, her sundress fluttering in the air-conditioned breeze, her hair loose and catching the light. She was alone, but her smile was different, brighter, expectant. My heart sank as a man approached her, tall, broad-shouldered, with a grin that matched hers. He kissed her cheek and she laughed, her hand lingering on his arm. I knew that laugh. I'd lived for that laugh. And now it belonged to someone else. I didn't move, didn't breathe. They walked toward the bar, her hip brushing his, and I felt the world crack open. My phone buzzed in my pocket, her text. Landed in Asheville. Love you. The lie was a punch, but I was already numb. I stood, my legs unsteady, and followed them. The bar was crowded, the air thick with perfume and laughter. I kept my distance, blending into the blur of tourists and locals. Sarah and the man sat at a high-top table, their heads close, their drinks untouched. I couldn't hear their words, but I didn't need to. Her body language told me everything, tilted toward him, her fingers brushing his wrist, her eyes locked on his like he was the only person in the room. I pulled out my phone and started snapping photos, my hands shaking but my resolve cold. Receipts, I thought. Proof. Not just for her, but for me. To make it real. To make it undeniable. I captured every moment. Her smile, his hand on her knee. The way she leaned in when he whispered something. Each click was a wound, but I kept going. Hours later, they left the bar heading toward the elevators. I followed, my pulse hammering. They stepped inside, and I slipped into the next car, my mind racing. What was I doing? Confronting her in a hotel room? Dragging this stranger into our mess? I didn't know. All I knew was the pain, raw and relentless, pushing me forward. I got off on their floor, lingering in the hallway as they disappeared into a room. The door clicked shut, and I stood there, frozen, imagining the worst. My phone vibrated again. Another text from Sarah. Night. Spa day tomorrow. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to break something. Instead, I slid down the wall, my head in my hands, and let the tears come. The next morning, I was back in the lobby, hollowed out but determined. I'd spent the night in a cheap motel nearby, unable to sleep, replaying every moment of our marriage. The good, the bad, the ordinary. How had I missed this? When had she stopped being mine? I didn't have answers, but I had the photos, the texts, the email. I had enough. When Sarah emerged from the elevator, alone this time, I stepped into her path. Her eyes widened, her face paling as she registered me. Matt. Her voice was a whisper, caught between shock and fear. What are you doing here? I held up my phone, the screen showing the photo of her and the man, her hand on his arm. Care to explain? She opened her mouth, closed it, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. It's not what you think, she said finally, her voice trembling. Then what is it, Sarah? My voice cracked, the anger spilling out. You told me it was a girls' trip. Asheville. Wine and hiking. But you're here, in Miami with him. I saw you. I have the texts. I have the email. Don't lie to me again. Her face crumpled, tears welling up. Matt, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this. For what? I cut her off, my voice rising. For me to find out? For you to cheat? For you to throw away 12 years like it's nothing? It's not nothing, she cried, her voice raw. I love you, Matt. I do. But I got lost. I don't know how it happened. He's just someone from work. And it started as nothing, just talking, and then you lied to me. I said, my voice low, deadly. You looked me in the eye and lied. You left our kids, our life for this. She reached for me, but I stepped back, the distance between us a chasm. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I was going to end it. I swear. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You expect me to believe that? After this? I held up the phone again, the evidence burning between us. She covered her face, sobbing now, and for a moment I wanted to hold her, to fix this, to go back to the way things were. But I couldn't. The trust was gone, shattered in a Miami hotel lobby. I turned to leave, my heart heavy, but my resolve firm. Matt, please, she called after me. We can work through this. For the kids. I stopped, my back to her, the weight of her words pressing down. The kids. Our daughter, Ellie, with her gap-toothed grin, and our son Ben, who still asked me to check for monsters under his bed. They deserved better than this. Better than a marriage held together by lies. I don't know if we can, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I know I can't trust you anymore. I walked away, her sobs echoing behind me, each step heavier than the last. The photos, the texts, the email, they were my receipts, proof of a betrayal I'd never wanted to see. But they were also my anchor, grounding me in a truth I couldn't ignore. Whatever came next, divorce, counseling, or something in between, I'd face it with my eyes open, no matter how much it hurt. The flight home was quiet, the hum of the plane a dull roar in my ears. I stared out the window, the clouds below a blur of white and gray, and thought about the life we'd built. The birthday parties, the late-night talks, the mornings when Sarah would sneak an extra pancake onto my plate with a wink. Those moments were real, weren't they? Or had they been tainted by her secrets, her other life? When I got home, the house was empty, the kids still with my parents. I sat on the couch, the silence suffocating, and pulled out my phone. The photos stared back at me, a gallery of heartbreak. I could delete them, pretend this never happened, try to rebuild. But I didn't. Instead, I forwarded them to my email, a digital paper trail of the truth. The front door creaked open hours later, and Sarah stepped inside, her suitcase trailing behind her. She looked smaller, fragile, her eyes red from crying. Matt, she said softly. Can we talk? I looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman I'd loved for half my life. But I also saw the stranger who'd lied, who'd chosen someone else. The pain was a living thing, clawing at my chest, but so was the love, tangled and bruised but still there. We can talk, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But it's going to take more than words, Sarah. A lot more. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks, and in that moment, I didn't know what the future held. Forgiveness? Separation? Something else entirely? All I knew was that the receipts I'd brought to Miami had changed everything. And there was no going back.